Okay, so we need to begin by doing our prostrations, three prostrations in front of the lineage tree and your altar. Om, Ah, Hum. Body, speech, and mind. The Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Body, speech, and mind. The Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Body, speech, and mind. The Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Okay, very good. So now we go to the Ngöndro practice book, the Uncommon Preliminary Practices, the Lineage Refuge Practice, and we go to page 1, and is the introduction. You can see Ryan, he's doing a 5-point prostration. He's not doing the full body prostration. He's doing the 5-point. His knees and both hands go to the floor, and his forehead goes to the floor. So that's quite acceptable. That's fine. What I was doing was the full body prostration. And then you can also do an abbreviated one where you're staying on your knees or where you just remain standing. So now we recite the introduction on page 1. It says, for the benefit of all sentient beings, most gracious Buddha Shakyamuni spoke the Dharma through the sutras and tantras. The 5 profound paths of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa are the essence of the Buddha's teachings, which enable one to attain enlightenment even in one lifetime. However, to practice the path of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa, one must be fully convinced of the 4 ways of turning the mind, or the 4 ordinary foundations. The 4 ways of turning the mind are the basis for the successful practice of any of the yanas. Then one practices the 4 extraordinary foundations, or the Vajrayana Ngöndro, to purify the negative karma and obscurations of the mind, speech, and body, and to develop virtues. The great 12th century Tibetan saint, Lord Jigden Sumgun, the second Nagarjuna, said, the Ngöndro is even more important than the higher practices. One must truly understand and practice the simple yet profound foundational teachings before one begins the higher teachings. Now, the altruistic motivation. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dang war je pe dra no por je pe geg. Tarpa dang tam shaken pe bar du jo por je pa tam shaki so je pe. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dugnal dang drel nor du la na me pa yang dag pa zog pe zhang zhu bren po she to pa zha. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deshe du sang ma ge gi bardu lunagi sam ge wala ko. Mashe bardu lunagi sam ge wala ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma song ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teachings, and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Nam ke dadam yam pe sem chen tam she chok chu du som gi. De shin sek pa tam she gi ku song ton yen ten trin le tam she gi no word jer pa. Choki pom po ton chak ka chu cha che jung ne. Pape ge dun tam she gi na da. Transcends awa dangu pa je pe pal dan lama dam pa nam la kyab su chi o. Yedam kil gor gi la sok nam la kyab su chi o. Sangye chom den de nam la kyab su chi o. Dam pe cho nam la kyab su chi o. Pa pe ge dun nam la kyab su chi o. Pa wo ka jo cho kyung song me song yes she gi chang dang dem pa nam la kyab su chi o. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangzhu Ningpo Chi Ki Bar Sangye Nam La Kapsu Chi Chodang Shangshu Sampa Yi So Klang De Shin Kapsu Chi Zeta Nongyi De Shegi Shangshu Tugni Ke Padang Shangshu Sampe La Pala De Dagrim Shin E Patar De Shindro La Pandandu Shangshu Samni Ke Gishing De Shindu Ni La Pala Rimpa Shindu La Pa Ji O. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Cho Nam La Shangju Bardu Dagni Kapsu Chi Dagi Jin Soki Pe So Nam Gi Drola Panshir Sangye Ju Pa Sho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pesam chantam she dewa dang dewe gudang dempa jorchi. Dugnal dang dunal gi gudang drawa jorchi. Dugnal me pe dewa dang mi drawa jorchi. May ring jack dang ni dang drawe dang namla ne pa jorchi. Page 11. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, requesting, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Chaksa wadang choching sapadang Jesu yi rang kol sing so wa yi Ge wa jung se da gi ji sakpa Tam she zok pe shang zhub shir no. 4 ways of turning the mind. Oh, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When we obtain this body, which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain the ultimate liberation, joyous result. Contemplate the meaning of precious human life. Next on page 13. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty for all who are born. Death can descend any time like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma. Contemplate impermanence. Next. The fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding in all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the dharma by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. Contemplate the meaning of karma, cause, and result. Okay. Next page is number 4. In the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. Contemplate the meaning of the suffering of samsara, the faults of samsara. Okay, so this has been a mental, intellectual investigation of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. So next, we prepare to open up our hearts, our heart center. And the first step of doing this uh, is to bring the protection circle, is to recognize the protection circle by a circle of dakinis that are standing shoulder to shoulder, all facing inside the circle at the heart center. And these dakinis are tight, nothing can get by them. And so they are the protection circle to protect our heart from confusion. So we recite the names of each of these dakinis by the way of the Sanskrit alphabet mantra. So this is what we recite now 3 times. Om, a, I, o, ri, ri, li, li, e, o, ang, a, kaka gagana, zaza zazana, tata dadana, papa babama, yawalawa, sa, ka, saha, kriya, soha. Om, ii, rivi, lili, kaka gagana, zaza zazana, tata dadana, papa babama, yabalawa, sa, ka, saha, kriya, soha. Om, ii, rivi, lili, kaka gagana, tata dadana, papa babama, yawalawa, sa, kaha, kriya, soha. So now the mantra of interdependent origination. Om Yadharma, Hetu Prabhava, Hetu Tekan Tadagato, Hail Watatata, Takansa, Yonorada, Evamwadi, Mahashamaniye, Soha. On page 17 is the English translation. All phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. Their cessation has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniye, Soha. Once again in English. All phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. The cessation, too, has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniye, so be it. Now, twice again in Sanskrit. Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava Hetu Tekan Tathagato Hail Watatata Takanso Yonorada Evamwadi Mahashamaniye Soha. Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava Hetu Tekan Tathagato Hail Watatata Takansa Yonorada Evamwadi Mahashamaniye Soha. Now the 100-syllable mantra to purify any confusion, any misdeeds, etc. So we turn to page 19 is the English translation, and then we flip back to page 18 to recite it in the Sanskrit. So once in the English, 3 times in the Sanskrit. Om Vajradhara Samaya, help to protect my vow, to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the 4 joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realization of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus I signify my unity with non-duality. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sara Tathagata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Sattvaha Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sara Tathagata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Sattvaha Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bhava Suto kayo me bawa, supo kayo me bawa, anuraktu me bawa, sara siddhi me prayatsa, sara karma sutsa me, sitsan shriya kuru hung, ha 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 ho bhagavan, Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Baba Mahasamaya Satwaha. Now, the increasing mantras for the power of the practice that we're about to do. The Sanskrit is on the left side, page 20, and then the Sanskrit transliteration along with the English translation is on page 21. So we begin with counting 7 times. Om Sambar Sambar Bhimanasar Mahazamba Hung. 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 Arising from a defiled mind, be reborn into great wisdom. Om Smar Smar Bhimanaskar Mahazamba Hung Pe. 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 Arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. Om Sambar Sambar Mahazambu Hung Pe. 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 Arising great holy wisdom, purify this life. Now the Malabid purification. Winding the beads in the left hand clockwise, holding the guru bead between your first finger and your middle finger of your right hand, like this. And we recite. Om Ruchiramana Prarataya Hong Pe. 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 The enlightened body, speech, and mind of the precious Dharma protectors, whose mirror-like wisdom is the door to purification. Om Re Pamanurti Shvari Hung. 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 The body, speech, and mind of pure love is the ultimate wisdom. We blow on the beads, animate the beads with our breath, and we recite Om Ahung. Om Ahung, 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 Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments about any of the practice? Alex, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming. Thank everybody on YouTube.
It's great to join. Thank you for leading us.
Anybody on YouTube want to contact us for information or any questions or comments? We can be reached at buddhapracticestudy.com. Okay, so now we continue with the Ngöndro practice, the refuge part. So we, on page 23 of our book, it says the practice of taking refuge, the first section of the Drikung Kagyu Ngöndro. Page 24 is the benefits of taking refuge. If the merit of taking refuge in the triple gem could manifest in form, the whole universe could not contain it. Even though attempting to describe the infinite benefits of practicing refuge is like attempting to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. There are 8 benefits as explained in the jewel ornament of liberation. One becomes a Buddhist. It becomes the basis of all precepts and vows. It exhausts all previous non-virtuous deeds. It protects one from obstacles created by humans and non-human. One accomplishes all one wishes. One gathers a great amount of merit. One will not fall into the lower realms. One attains Buddhahood swiftly. Refuge practice is the essence of all other practices. Therefore, one always should emphasize this practice. It has inconceivable beneficial effects. Through this practice, one can achieve the fearless state. What do you think we fear most of all? Anybody have a comment? Ryan, what do you think?
David said, T-Rexes?
I think it's the unknown,
Okay.
and that is a broad term, but I think that is the at the basis of what we fear. Even if you see something dangerous coming at you, you fear the unknown. You wonder if you're going to prevail, survive, or not survive.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Anybody else have a comment, an answer to that? What do we fear? You know, it says through this practice one can achieve the fearless state. So what is it that we fear? Alex?
Yeah, that I was actually wanting to ask that question last time, but first thing that came to mind is like uh, our own end, our own death, which we think is coming sometimes. So just like previously said, it roots in the unknown of what's coming after our seeds of life force function, and then it extends to other things that brings uncertainty.
Certainly. Thank you. Anybody else? Right.
I second what Alex was saying. I think that is at the core of a lot of the other fears, even if on an unconscious level, I guess.
Okay. Okay. Well, of course, everything that you said, all of you said, is right. I think, and I think that we fear change. We know who we are right at this moment, and maybe we don't want to give that up. We don't want to change. So if we look at each moment as a change, if we look at this life as a change from something that came before, and that we're going to experience another change through the death of this life and into another life, or that very simply that we're sitting on the cushion in a meditation position along with the meditation practice, that we will invariably change. We will rise up from the cushion a different person than we were when we first sat down. So by doing these practices, we're practicing change. We're practicing our evolution. We're practicing going from one set of causes and conditions in our lives that rule our lives to what might be another set of causes and conditions that might have more light to them, that might have more understanding to them, less confusion. So this is how, through this practice, one can achieve the fearless state, because we go through this change over and over and over again. Okay. So now we begin the practice. It says, with one pointed mind, take refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So we've done that through our prayers and so on. We have a firm resolution in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. So now it says, meditate the surroundings as inseparable from a Buddha field. So in order for us to visualize the Buddha field, I'm going to screen share, and you should have close by, here it is the lineage tree. So this is a Buddha field. This is what we would say is a Buddha field. Let me get rid of this bar on my screen. So here we've gone through this. Does anybody have any questions about any of the elements of the lineage tree?
Lance, I'm not sure if we gone through what is in the corners, upper corners.
The upper corners? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, whoops, here in this, oh, nuts, I went too far. Sorry. There we go. This is what I wanted. Okay, so in this corner here, in the upper right-hand corner, our upper right-hand corner is Sukhavati, is the Pure Land of Amitabha Buddha. In the upper left-hand corner is Vajradhara, Vajradhara is the Pure Land of Medicine Buddha. Sangye Menla is Medicine Buddha. This is the Pure Land of Medicine Buddha. This is the Pure Land of Buddha Amitabha. So in our, as we do our different practices and so on, these are the two most common practices that we do, Medicine Buddha and Amitabha Buddha. So that's why they are here for us. Okay.
Thanks. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So if you've been able to put this up on your altar where it's in front of you while you're doing your practice, that is the reason for doing this, that we're being mindful of this. We're creating mindfulness through these practices, mindfulness that we are part of a lineage, and we're joining the lineage through the refuge practices that we're taking in this first part of the Ngöndro, that we're overcoming our ego. We are cutting through our ego through the prostrations that we do. And to cut through our ego, we need to be able to subdue the negativity, the confusion, the things that we attach to, our hatreds, the 5 root poisons, etc., and all the things that they manifest and so on, that we're cutting through each of these prostrations is helping us to do that. So this is a view of our Pure Land is the lineage tree, this lineage tree. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up, and so back to the text on page 25. Meditate the surroundings are as separable from a Buddha field. In the space in front of me is a lion throne on which are a lotus, sun, and moon disk seat, in the center of which sits the kind root Lama in the form of Vajradhara with the 7 characteristics. If anybody has any questions, just turn your microphones on and come right in. Otherwise, I'm going to keep reading for a bit. Blue in color, 2 arms, holding a Vajra and bell crossed at the heart and gracefully sitting in the Vajra position, adorned with the silken robes and various precious jewel ornaments and surrounding by all the lineage lamas. So these are the 7 characteristics. So you can go read and enumerate each one of these and see how this all comes together. This is part of creating and sustaining the mindfulness of this, the veracity of this practice. In front of the lion throne is the Yidam Shakasamvara, the male and female aspects in union, whose manifestation is simultaneously appearance and emptiness. At the right side of the throne is the assembly of the Buddhas of the 3 times, possessing all the auspicious signs of a Buddha, together with the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate Kalpa. Behind the throne is the Prajna Paramita, proclaiming the relative and ultimate meaning of the 3 yanas. To the left of the throne is the assembly of the compassionate bodhisattvas, surrounded by the Sangha of the 3 yanas. Around the base of the throne are the Dharmapalas, an ocean of guardians gathered like clouds. So now we recite the refuge prayer. Buddhas, Dharma, Sanghas, Yidams, and Dharma protectors, to these supreme objects of refuge for protection from the hordes of suffering of samsara, we all migrators, go for refuge until enlightenment is attained. Buddhas, Dharma, Sanghas, Yidams, and Dharma protectors, to these supreme objects of refuge for protection from the hordes of suffering of samsara, we, all migrators, go for refuge until enlightenment is attained. Sangye choso yidam chokyong she Kap chog nam la dak sog jo wa kun. Si pe jik sog nam na le kyob chir. Shang shu ma to ba du kap su chi. I rejoice when all sentient beings are happy and free from the samsaric suffering and swiftly attain ultimate Buddhahood. For this purpose, from now on until I achieve enlightenment, I will follow in the path to the ultimate goal. I rejoice when all sentient beings are happy and free from the samsaric suffering and swiftly attain ultimate Buddhahood. For this purpose, from now until I achieve enlightenment, I will follow the path of the ultimate goal. Jokun de den tognel drawadan, nor du la me to pardagawe. De chir den ne chang shu matu bar. Ne pe don chog nam la chu parja. So now is page 30 and 31, and this is the long refuge prayer as we recite it in the mornings in our opening prayers. And this is the accumulation mantra that we are accumulating the prostrations at the same time that we are doing the prostrations. So we recite this, we'll recite this 3 times, twice in English, once in Tibet, and then we'll begin to do prostrations. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Transcend sawadangur parje pe paldan lama dampa namla kapsuchio. Yidam kil gorgila sok namla kapsuchio. Sangye chom dende namla kapsuchio. Dampe cho namla kapsuchio. Pape ge dunam la kapsuchio. Pawo kadro cho kyong song me song yeshe gi chang dang dempa nam la kapsuchio. So now, let me see, I'm going to okay, so now we're going to do the prostrations. So those of you who are not going to do the prostrations, then please recite the mantra. Those of you that are doing the prostrations, if you know the mantra, to recite the mantra is what you should be doing. But if you don't know it and are reciting, then those of us that are reciting the mantra will be covering you, so to speak. So, Trinsen sa wa dan gurpa, JP Paldan Lama, Dampa Namla Kapsuchio, Yidam Kyo Gorgi La Sok Namla Kapsuchio, Sange Chom Dende Namla Kapsuchio, Dampe Cho Namla Kapsuchio, Pepe Ge Du Namla Kapsuchio, Woka Jocho Kyo Me Shong Yeshe Gi Cheng Deng Dampa Namla Kapsuchio. Trinsen sa wa dan gurpa, JP Paldan Lama, Dampa Namla Kapsuchio, Yidam Kyo Gorgi La Sok Namla Kapsuchio, Sangye chom dende nam la kapsu chiyo. Tempe chom nam la kapsu chiyo. Pepe ge dun nam la kapsu chiyo. Awoka joju kyo me shong yeshe gi cheng den den pa nam la kapsu chiyo. Twin sense wa dan gerpa. Jepe balden lama dan pa nam la kapsu chiyo. Yedam kyo gorgi la sok nam la kapsu chiyo. Sangye chom dende nam la kapsu chiyo. Tempe chom nam la kapsu chiyo. Pepe ge dun nam la kapsu chiyo. Awoka joju kyo me shong yeshe gi cheng den den pa nam la kapsu chiyo. We go for refuge to the kind root lama and lineage lamas. We go for refuge to the deities and the mandalas of the yidams. We go for refuge to all the exalted Buddhas. We go for refuge to the perfect Dharma. We go for refuge to the excellent order of the Sanghas. We go for refuge to the Dakas, Dakinis, Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We go for refuge to the kind root and lineage lamas. We go for refuge to the deities and the mandalas of the yidams. We go for refuge to all the exalted Buddhas. We go for refuge to the perfect Dharma. We go for refuge to the excellent order of the Sanghas. We go for refuge to the Dagas and Dakinis, male and female Dharma protectors. Trinsen sa wa den gerpa jepe pao den lama dampan nam la kapsu chiyo. Yedam kyo gorgi la sok nam la kapsu chiyo. Sangye chom dende nam la kapsu chiyo. Tempe chom nam la kapsu chiyo. Pepe ge du nam la kapsu chiyo. Pawoka joju kyo me. Song yeshe gi cheng den den pa nam la kapsu chiyo. Trinsen sa wa den gerpa. Jepe pao den lama dampan nam la kapsu chiyo. Yedam kyo gorgi la sok nam la kapsu chiyo. Sangye chom dende nam la kapsu chiyo. Tempe chom nam la kapsu chiyo. Pepe ge du nam la kapsu chiyo. Pawoka joju kyo me shung yeshe gi cheng den den pa nam la kapsu chiyo. Junsen sa wa den gerpa jepe pao den lama dampa nam la kapsu chiyo. Yedam kyo gorgi la sok nam la kapsu chiyo. Sangye chom dende nam la kapsu chiyo. Tempe chom nam la kapsu chiyo. Pepe ge du nam la kapsu chiyo. Pawoka joju kyo me shung yeshe gi cheng den den pa nam la kapsu chiyo. Junsen sa wa den gerpa jepe pao den lama dampa nam la kapsu chiyo. Yedam kyo gorgi la sok nam la kapsu chiyo. Sangye chom dende nam la kapsu chiyo. Tempe chom nam la kapsu chiyo. Pepe ge du nam la kapsu chiyo. Pawoka joju kyo me shung yeshe gi cheng den den pa nam la kapsu chiyo. We take refuge in the kind root lama and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities and the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities and the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root lama and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Jun Sen Sa Wa Dan Gur Pa J Pe Pao Dan Lama Dam Pa Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Yidam Kilgore Gi La Sok Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Sange Chom Dende Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Dam Pe Jo Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Pa Pe Ge Du Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Pa Woka Jojo Kyo Me Shong Yeshe Gi Cheng Dang Dam Pa Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Jun Sen Sa Wa Dan Gur Pa J Pe Pa Dan Lama Dam Pa Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Yidam Kilgore Gi La Sok Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Sange Chom Dende Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Dam Pe Cho Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Pa Pe Ge Du Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Pa Wo Ka Jo Cho Kyo Me Shong Yeshe Gi Jing Den Den Ba Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Jun Sen Sa Wa Dan Gur Pa J Pe Pao Dan Lama Dam Pa Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Yidam Kilgore Gi La Sok Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Sange Chom Dende Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Dam Pe Cho Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Pa Pe Ge Du Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Pa Wo Ka Jo Chu Kyo Me Shong Yeshe Gi Cheng Deng Dem Pa Nam Lai Kap Su Chio. Take your seats. Thank you very much. That was approximately 21 prostrations or recitations, I should say. So you probably did something close to 50 prostrations, because you can usually do about 2 prostrations per each mantra recitation, something in that neighborhood. So maybe 40, maybe 50. So now we come to the bottom part of page 31, where it says, note, recite the refuge prayer as many times as possible. Meditate that the refuge visualization dissolves into oneself and oneself dissolves into emptiness, and rest in the natural state. So we can sit here for a few moments and just collect our breath. Visualize that we've been standing and doing these prostrations in front of the refuge tree, purifying ourselves, enabling ourselves to become a vessel of the lineage tree, to be part of the lineage. Okay. So now we come to the next part that we haven't explained yet. So now we are visualizing the protection circle, the Vajra fence. We're visualizing the Dakinis who, in the first part, we saw the Dakinis were all standing shoulder to shoulder facing the heart center. Now, the Dakinis are standing shoulder to shoulder, but their backs are towards the heart center and they're facing outwards. And what this is a protection of beings that are coming toward the heart center to protect the heart from any kind of damage, to allow those beings who are coming towards the heart center, who are coming towards this Vajra fence, this Vajra circle, to question or to talk to or to understand who those beings are coming and whether or not to allow them to come through, to protect the heart center from those coming to do damage. And so this is the purification visualization after now that we have opened the heart and our heart is vulnerable, etc. And now the protection to allow those beings who wish to come in with a pure intention. So we recite the mantra with this in mind, the same mantra as we did before, the Sanskrit alphabet. Om, a, I, o, ri, li, o, a, kaka, gagana, zaza, zazana, tata, dadana, tata, dadana, papa, babama, yawalawa, sa, kaha, kriya, soha. Oma, a, I, o, ri, li, o, a, kaka, gagana, zaza, zazana, tata, dadana, tata, dadana, baba, babama, yawalawa, sa, kaha, kriya, soha. Oma, a, I, o, ri, li, o, a, kaka, gagana, zaza, zazana, tata, dadana, tata, dadana, papa, babama, yawalawa, sa, kaha, kriya, soha. And then again, the mantra of interdependent origination. Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava Hetu Tekan Tadagato Hea Watatata Tekansa Yunarada Evam Mahashimani Soha. Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava Hetu Tekan Tadagato Hea Watatata Tekansa Yunarada Evam Mahashimani Soha. And if you want to flip back to page 17, the English, then all phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. The cessation, too, has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shramaniye, Soha. So you will, if you engage in this ngondro practice, you will memorize all of this. Just very naturally, by doing this every day over and over again, you will memorize all this. So this will come very naturally to you, and you will become the embodiment of this process, of this refuge. Then we recite the 100-syllable mantra, purifying any negativities, any confusion, any mispronunciations, any prostrations that we didn't do properly, any mental thoughts that came up that were disrupting us or anything like that. This is the confession of any disruptions that might have happened. So this 100-syllable mantra is to purify any of those impurities that popped up during the time you were doing the refuge prostrations. So we recite this twice in Sanskrit and once in English. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Palaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Suya Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sara Tada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Satwaha Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Palaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Shriya Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sara Tada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Satwaha in English. Om, page 19. Om Vajrasattva Samaya. I help to protect my vow, to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realization of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus I signify my unity with non-duality. Ah. Okay, so now we come to page 34. And 34, now this is, we recite this at the completion. We recite, you see on page 34, you see there's all this text here. And then the page below it, 35, is the transliteration of the Tibetan text with the translation. So, and it's in a more readable fashion. So I think it'd be good to focus on page 35. So these are the mantras for multiplying the practice. In other words, that we keep coming back to do the practice over and over again. So that's what these are for. So first is this mantra we recite 7 times. Teata pensadriva avobodhanaya soha. 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 This is it. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are the 5 families and the 3 times who have destroyed all defilements, lead to equipoise of the enlightened mind. So this is a grand statement. This is a motivation that is so powerful. Read it again. This is it. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are the 5 families in the 3 times. The 5 families are the 5 Buddha families that we've talked about. Varanchana, we talked about Ascobia, Ratnasambhava, Amitabha, and Amagog City, and their spiritual sons and daughters, the Bodhisattvas, Kshitigarbha and Maitreya, Kasagarbha and Samantabhadra, Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara and Vajrapani and Sarvanarada Vishkaben. So these are the 5 Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 5 families, the heads of them, and the 3 times are the past, present, and future. In other words, saying that they're timeless. It's all time. There's no time. And they have all destroyed defilements. For them to get to where they are, as human beings, they had to progress along the path of purification. So what they have done is to destroy the defilements. They brought those defilements onto the path, and those defilements were neutralized. They were destroyed through the practices that we engage in and so on. So it says, who have destroyed all defilements, and this leads to the equipoise of the enlightened mind. This is how we get to that equipoise of the enlightened mind, through the destruction of the defilements, all the emotions, the afflictive emotions, the mental misconceptions, and the habitual tendencies. So through these practices, you see, all those are purified. Then the next mantra is Om Ru Ru Daru Muki Muki Soha. 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 And the translation for this is, the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the peaceful and wrathful deities is the Buddha. Awakened. If we replace the word Buddha with awakened one, we say the enlightened body, speech, and mind of all the peaceful and the wrathful deities are all Buddha. It's all the same. Their activities are different, but the essence of what they all are is the same. So then the next mantra is Om Dai Dai Bendai Soha. 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 I enjoy doing that. I lost count. The English translation for that is, the body, speech, and the mind of the Buddha is the cause for enlightenment of all sentient beings. Very powerful statements, these statements here. The body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, of the awakened one, is the cause for enlightenment of all sentient beings. So as we purify, as we develop our realization and our purification of our own body, speech, and mind, the more that we become awakened, the more our motivation is to be doing this for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. It's not an intellectual quest. It becomes a heartfelt quest. We do it because this is our nature. This is our true nature. It's our true nature. And what we're doing is we're cleansing away all the defilements, all the stuff that we've accumulated as being a human being. When we first were conceived, when we first were born, there was a purity there that has been blocked up through all the defilements that we've gone through during our lifetime. And what we're doing is removing those defilements to reveal that purity that has always been there. And then when that it begins to shine through, as you're doing that, in the process of doing that, it's like you're cleaning it and shoots of light come through. And those are our momentary aha moments. Those times when we have an epiphany, when something lights up in our mind and says, oh, now I know what I'm doing. Oh, this is my love. This is my compassion. But then, the obscurations come back again because we haven't completely purified, but we have those moments, those glimpses, glimpse after glimpse. But as we progress along the path, those glimpses become more frequent, they last longer, and they have more depth to them, more understanding, more meaning to them in a heartfelt way. So then the next mantra is Om Hanubasha Bara Hridaya Soha. 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 And this means the bliss and strength in the heart center of the Buddha is equipoise. So if you ever wondered what equipoise is, you see the reference to it many times in the different practices and prayers and so on that we do. What is equipoise? Well, that equipoise is that bliss and that strength that is in the heart center, in your heart center, as you become more and more awakened. It's your stability. It is your immovability. It is your steadfastness. It is your wisdom of equanimity. It is your wisdom of mirror-like wisdom. It is your wisdom of discriminating awareness. It's the wisdom of the all-accomplishing wisdom. It is the all-pervading wisdom. The more that becomes real to you, you know it. You are it. You are that wisdom. That bliss and strength in the heart center of Buddha is equipoise. How does the Buddha sit there? And the way that Buddha does is characterized in equipoise, completely effortless in timeless fashion, because of that wisdom, because of that strength. So then we seal this with the beads and we do Om Ahung. So before we maybe were approaching Om Ahung as we were reciting the beads the first time, now we are reciting it to stabilize it within ourselves, that we are awakened, that we are Buddha for this time. We are enlightened for this time, as long as we can maintain that. So it's our body, speech, and mind. We are in equipoise. Om Ahung, 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 Om Om Ahom. So now we come to the italics at the bottom of page 35. It says, visualize with faith that the root Lama is present in the sky in front, surrounded by assemblies of Yidam deities and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So the root Lama is Vajradhara. Remember in the very beginning, the root Lama is Vajradhara, who is in the center of the lineage tree. The primordial Buddha the root Lama, the primordial Buddha, who is so pure that Vajradhara is unborn. There's no chance of contamination, of any kind of corruption. It's unborn. So we visualize that that is in front of us, surrounded by the lineage tree, surrounded by the Yidam deities and all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas.
Can I ask a question real quick, Lance?
Certainly.
So with the visualizing the root Lama, would we be visualizing a root Lama in a more literal sense, like in the form of Vajradhara, like Garchen Rinpoche in the form of Vajradhara, something like that, or visualizing the Yidam form of Vajradhara? Maybe there's not even a difference. I don't know.
Well, yes, whatever it takes. You know, if it's your root guru, you know, the guru that you that you've taken refuge with, and that has introduced you to the nature of the mind, but knowing that he is in his heart are all the lineage tree lamas, all the other Drikungpas are within him. So you can think of those as the root lama, and then that leads then to Vajradhara, or maybe leads to Buddha Shakyamuni. And then Shakyamuni then leads to Vajradhara. So you can go through this in a progression, you know, and see that they're all the same until you get to that primordial state where there is no form. It is just bodhicitta. It is just love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. There's no form. You know, we give Vajradhara a form just so we can kind of apprehend, you know, what the meaning of this is. We give it this anthropomorphic form, but the essence of it is way beyond the form itself, way beyond the human being. So again, you know, we go through this whole process in a kind of a mechanical way until we learn it. And then it just flows very, very naturally. And we don't need to think about all these individual things. And then all these images and so on all kind of melt into this formlessness in our heart center of this Dharmakaya, that we become Buddha.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir. So then we come to page 36. At the end of this, you know, we may recite page 35 and we visualize this Buddha field, and we may sit there in a meditation, you know, just in this spontaneous meditation for quite a while. You can do that. I mean, it's very inspiring to do that, and just let the thoughts just rise up until the thoughts just kind of dissipate. You know, that's what these multiplying mantras will do. They kind of just dissipate into the emptiness, into the truth body. So allow that to happen. Then we come to page 36, and then it says, recite at the end of the session, the objects of refuge dissolve into the main figure, and he dissolves into your crown. So the main figure is Vajradhara and all the other associated Buddhas, but the essence is the primordial Buddha, Vajradhara. So all the objects of refuge all dissolve into Vajradhara, and then Vajradhara dissolves into your crown. Dissolves into your crown, comes down through the center channel into your heart center. and you can abide in that. Then it says at the bottom, the italics, it says, then dedicate after the objects, dissolve from the edge, and dissolve into your crown. So it's a visualization of how that works. The objects dissolving from the edge, dissolving into your crown, and so on. And then you would do the lineage dedication, which starts on page 37, that we recite most all the time. Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, etc. We recite that.
Where is it that you're looking at, or I don't know if for anyone else, like in the text itself right now?
I'm on page 36 and 37.
Yeah, mine. I don't know. My 36 doesn't have some of that stuff, but
Well, some of it is what I've been telling you.
okay,
But,
okay.
but it does say the objects of refuge dissolve into the main figure, right?
Mine doesn't say that on 36, unless I'm confused about.
What book are you in? Are
Do
you
other
in the
people-
Ngöndro book? What is 36? What is 36?
It has the mantras, and then the first thing that you said about visualizing the root lama and the
How did that
deities,
happen?
Buddhism, Bodhisattva. Unless other people.
The objects of refuge dissolve into the main figure that we have on page 32.
You've got that on
Sorry.
page 32?
Yeah, it's just all right shuffling.
How did that happen? Wait a minute. I wonder if I got a different version. Because as I was making. So, what page, Debbie, is the objects of refuge dissolve into the main figure?
That is page 32. That's right after, yeah,
The mantras for multiplying the practice?
right. No, actually, it's not. So it's right after the when we do the refuge pair and the my brain is not working.
Yeah, all right, what do you
Frustrations.
got?
Okay.
What's on your page 32?
It's on page 32 for me. The objects of refuge dissolve into the main figure.
And then right before that, what's on page 31?
The long refuge prayer where you do the prostrations.
Yeah, we take refuge in the perfect Dharma, and we take refuge in the excellent order of the Congress. We take refuge in all the noble dakas, dakinis, and
Well, I apologize. I'm sorry for that. I got another copy of the book downstairs. I'm going to have to check this and make sure that we're all looking at the same thing and how things got out of some kind of order here. So I'll, on our break, I'll go get that and get this straightened out. Sorry for the problem. All right, well, let's take a break now. Let's come back at 11 o'clock. Everybody's in Eastern time, I think, right now. So we'll come back in 15 minutes or so and continue our discussion and practice, okay? If you have any questions, write them down so we can talk about them. Thank you. The book I was using this morning was a work in progress book. And as I was going through there, I was saying to myself, you know, I should change the way the pages are organized. And I did. And that's the version that you guys have. And that's I got another copy here. So it was I should have destroyed or marked that other book as a work in progress book so I wouldn't get them confused. But so I have the same version that you guys have. And it's funny because as I was doing it, I'm thinking I should reorganize the pages, and exactly what I was thinking is what I did. So this is welcome to the mind of Lance sometimes. So does anybody have any questions or about this practice, comments?
Lance, I had a question about one of the term. I think it used about to signify a sage or some wisdom being who taught about dependent origination.
Yes, the Chevanier.
Shravanya, yes. Could you explain more about that? Is
The
it like
Chevanier, it translates the Sanskrit word, and it means the holy ascetic. The ascetic, the one who goes off into the hermitage and lives by himself.
okay? Is
So,
it one of the Buddhist teachers, or
Buddha Shakyamuni.
or is that Buddha Shakyamuni himself?
It's Buddha Shakyamuni himself. It refers to his time, going off into the forest with and learning to meditate with the gurus there, and then ultimately going into 6-year retreat by himself. So he is the Shramaniye.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought. But
Yeah, he is the Shramaniye, the ascetic. Yes. So good question and good observation. Thank you.
And another question I had, like, of course, in the past I have been connected to some other lineages like Nima tradition, but and I have some text here, and they're different, although they do have reference to Kagyu lineage in the text, and but they talk a lot about empowerments and achieving rainbow body. Is that something that is also part of Kagyu lineage, maybe later, or like, what do you know about this?
Well, certainly that's the direction that we're moving in, to realize the rainbow body, so that is all part of the deity yoga, that's all part of the Vajrayana. So we're being introduced to this whole process through this first ngondro. That's what the ngondro is, the introduction to the fivefold path of Mahamudra. And the fivefold path of Mahamudra is the meditation that takes us to the rainbow body.
So it's like each colors representing each of the wisdoms.
Correct.
And that in essence, why there is rainbow body means you accomplished 5 wisdoms.
That's correct. And so the 5 Buddha families are, they're representative, they're symbolic of those wisdoms, which are all, part of the Buddha nature. the awakened nature, yes. So this is a huge step in the direction of the rainbow body, of being able to experience that and realize that yourself. What do you think about that? Gary, what do you think about that? This progression, this pathway.
Well, I'm still trying to get it fixed in my mind. It's very iterative. It's very it's I'm struggling to find the right words to try to find a connectedness to all of it. I think that it requires a great deal of practice to try to get it fixed in your mind. It
Yeah, I
requires
think that's
a
true.
great deal of discipline.
Yeah, that's all true. But at the very least, can you see that what is being presented here is a prescribed pathway?
Yes, yes, it's obviously there's obviously a sense of connection, a sense of a journey in your spirit and your mind.
Yes. Matt, what would you say about this?
This might not be a complete wonder on direct answer to the topic or question, but for me, it's making me think of I've kind of relaxed into or realized over time with some of the specifics of a certain practice or teaching that over time as things unfold and other practices um, I don't know, come up or engage in other practices down the path that it's often referencing things that were introduced in these previous practices that kind of make sense of it. So I kind of eased into like even things like with dakinis and the dakini fence and protection and things like this, as an example that realizing over time things will start to make sense more. And so I kind of ease into it and see the progression of it, which I think is really helpful. But then for me also balancing it out with not over complicating for myself the path or the practices or the aim of them, which is like, the bodhicitta, opening the heart, seeing the wisdom of emptiness, some of these things that kind of ground and like, okay, this is this is what all of this is aiming towards, and then seeing the nature of the mind and freedom. So on the other end, I also got to be mindful of not getting lost in the tradition or some of the details of the practices as well. So kind of holding both of those, but just having a lighter touch with things in general because things progress and unfold in that way.
Yes. So, like you just mentioned, dakinis, and there's many other, references that are names of things or whatever that we're not familiar with. But, this should give you cause to go to those glossaries that are in the sutra books and look up dakini. Maybe it's in there, maybe it's not in there, because in the sutras, the sutras aren't, at least these early ones, aren't referencing the Vajrayana. So the dakinis are part of the Vajrayana. So you might not find it there, but you could Google it. Or you could, I've mentioned before, if you're really interested in developing, is this book called the Encyclopedia of Eastern Philosophy and Religion. And this is my go-to book. When I'm looking up words or something, this is really good because it includes all the different paths of Buddhism, including the Tibetan Buddhism, but it also has Taoism in it. It also has Zen in it, and it also has Hindu in it. So the words, might be Sanskrit words, but in the Hindu it means something, but in the Buddhism it might mean something a little different. So this is one book that combines all those things. So I find it to be very, very, very helpful. So if you really are interested in being a student of the Dharma, I find it to be an indispensable book. And that's the purpose, you see, of this refuge practice. You're taking refuge in the tree and you're kind of taking it apart and putting it back together again. And as you do that, you're identifying all the different components, all the different elements. And, oh, I don't know what this is. Do I need this? Is this something that's extra on the tree? Well, let me find out what this is. What is the essence of this? And then where it belongs on the tree, why it goes up there, and so on like that. And so by taking it apart, putting it back together again, you're leaving your wrong thoughts, your wrong views, your emotions, you're leaving them laying on the floor because they have no place on the tree. You know, oh, I thought this was that, or the other thing. You find, oh no, it's much simpler than that. And it does belong on the tree. But all that complexity that I've been trying to weave into this, that stays on the floor. That doesn't need to go onto the tree. So this is how we purify. We're purifying by simplifying. We're simplifying this by investigation. And that's what this is all about. We're taking refuge in the tree to have a set of guides for us in that investigation. So we're looking at concepts, ideas, we're looking at practices, all these things, and we find that we need those things at certain levels, but at some level there's a threshold at which you don't need all those things that you needed to get to where you are now. You need to shed those things, and then you become more pure, lighter. You don't need those other things as you move through the tree or along the path. Does that make sense?
Yeah. For me, especially coming back to the essence, that word, the essence, these things, I think that's a really important thing. And with just in like you were saying, and I was saying something before of noticing when getting into more of the Vajrayana practices, and worldview and approach to one's life, that certain things start to make more sense or take on a new context. That earlier on it was kind of like, oh, this feels like some kind, I don't know. I don't want to broaden the conversation too much, that to lose sight of what we're talking about right now. But for certain things where it's like, oh, this feels like there's some kind of religious superstition or something. But then like as things progress, I see like the it's put in a context, a practice context of relating to one's life in a way that it's have to let unfold, and so over time just lowering some of that resistance and just kind of rolling with things, and then feeling out the essence, and that's been a much more helpful approach for me over time, and in my recent experience with the Dharma over the last maybe few years or year or two.
Are you enjoying this?
Yeah.
Gary, how about you? Are you enjoying this?
Yes, it's very edifying. I mean, there's just so much to it to take in and to process, but it's very worthwhile. I'm glad to be doing it,
Good.
and I think that more people would benefit from it if the classes were bigger. I don't know if it's the time. There's only so much time in the week, but I think a lot of people who are in some of our other practices would find a lot of value in this.
Yes. Ryan, are you able to hear us? Are you listening to the conversation, and do you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, sorry, my phone died just before we took our break, and so I don't have a good charger, so I'm kind of listening, but my phone's in a different spot than it usually is when I'm sitting and participating. So anyway, yeah, I'm listening, and I like what everybody's saying, and I really feel connected to what the words you guys are sharing. I also sometimes I I I really relate a lot to what I think Matt was saying, where sometimes things feel really like they start to get heavily kind of dogmatic, or there's like a lot of tradition and stuff that seems like otherworldly, and then later it kind of like comes together. I don't know. He said it better than I can, I think. But I felt that process too, and it's always helpful for me to just come back to the really kind of like basic, like tangible side of things. And it's helpful for me in the beginning when we go through that little introductory statement, and we talk about how having gained a firm foundation in the the 4 thoughts or the 4 ways of turning the mind toward the Dharma, then we engage in this practice. And so sometimes I feel like I have to go back to those things, not to get too far off the subject, but especially lately with like the way that the things are going in the world, and like there's sometimes I just feel so disappointed in humanity, and that can be confusing. But I feel like when I can bring whatever thing I'm confused about back onto or into those 4 thoughts, then that kind of helps recenter me. And likewise with the Dakini fence and the things that are a little harder for me to grasp. I feel like when I put them into the framework and understand how it kind of works into training my mind, it's really helpful. Sorry, that was kind of like disjointed all over the place, but
No, that was really good. Thank you very much. And I have a lot of respect for Ryan. We've been Dharma friends for a long, long time, since way before COVID. And he's a family man and so on. So there was a time when we talked every single week for a couple of years, I think it was.
yep, my alarm still goes off.
No, we would talk for 2 hours, and we went through several different books together, page by page, line by line, word by word, and so on. And then there came a period of time where we didn't see each other. And now Ryan's kind of been back lately and everything, and it's good, because that is what happens. You kind of put it down for a while, and you say, I'm missing some things. I got to get back to that. And as you do, you're leaving those things laying on the floor that you found weren't necessary. It becomes a more pure experience because the test of time has proven some things are worthwhile, while some things have just been nonsense or confusing or whatever, or contaminated. So I guess a question I would have is, do you think of human beings, the human experience, do you see that as an end game? Or is or is being a human being a part of a process to something that is undefinable? What do you think of that question?
I would go to the precious human life thought and say that it's not an end game, but maybe it's part of bigger totality that and maybe a really good kind of opportunity. Wait, please. To make progress kind of like in this bigger scheme or bigger path that we're all kind of part of, that I feel like we're all just like a sliver of. I don't know. It's a great question though.
Okay. Alex, are you with us?
Yes.
With your scientific mind, what do you think of that question? Is being a human being, is that the end game, or is it still a work in progress, and there's something moving that as a human being we're just moving through that to get to someplace else?
Well, from what I keep learning in neuroscience these days, they like to say that human brain is the most complicated structure in the universe. I don't know how they know about all the complicated structures that may be there, but in general, I think studying Buddhism kind of gives me a couple answers to that, and that we have a choice. We could achieve enlightenment in even one lifetime if we very dedicated on a certain path and follow a good teacher. And that could be end game, but it also can be a longer journey if we choose so, or if we just not quite ready. Get up to the God's realms and recycle a little more in samsara, and learn a few more things and help others to become enlightenment. So yeah, until all matter evaporates back into empty space.
Okay.
Sorry for the
thank
long
you.
answer.
Well, no, it's very good. Thank you. Matt, would you comment on that? What does that mean to you?
I don't know. I guess I'm a little hesitant about this way of thinking. I mean, I know what you mean, and I think there's value to it of the idea of the human being a human being, or the human incarnation as like some step in something towards something else. But I I don't know. I think viewing things too much as like where everything becomes a means to an end, to some other end. Like that's very much the quality of my mind, or my samsaric mind, moment by moment when I look at it, where every moment in my suffering mind with the craving and aversion is trying to get to some other moment. It's trying to get to the next moment and change something that's going. That's like this push and pull. It's just like this leaning forward of everything. I have to make everything different in every moment, where everything I'm doing in some sense becomes this like means to some magical end that never that never comes, in this kind of cycle of suffering that goes on. So I think to kind of play, I don't know, devil's advocate, maybe something like that, or the other end of things. That's another thought I have about it too, I guess.
Do you think that the leaning forward, as you say, the leaning forward is do you see that as a fault, as opposed to just laying back and just not engaging if it's not necessary to engage?
Yeah, in the way I'm talking about it, I see the leaning forward as a fault, and kind of the manifestation of my samsaric cycle, or something like that. It's the opposite of equanimity, that kind of thing, where it's leaning forward in that sense, where everything always has to be different than it is now, with this expectation that I don't know what I think is going to happen. Finally, I'm going to create something that, then I'll feel okay. Then everything will feel okay. I'm not consciously always thinking this, but like when I look at the mind,
So the change that's gone in your life this past year or so, it's more from the kind of laying back and learning not to lean too much forward. Is that true?
Yeah, I guess in a sense, or changing the paradigm on some level, or if I am kind of leaning forward, as I'm putting it, in a way that's not as ego driven, maybe. But I mean, certainly the majority of my time of my experience is still made up of, if I was, keep it 100 with you, it's still that cyclic samsaric kind of leaning forward. I mean, that still dominates my experience. But even with the changes, of course, that that have happened for me, or that have improved. But yeah, it's, I think, more of that finding ways to calm things, fall back, let things unfold, and stop thinking about myself so much. Really.
Thank you. Very, very candid. Thank you very much. Gary, would you like to comment on what you think about those questions, those thoughts?
Well, I think the path that we're looking at is directs us away from egocentrism and makes us more a part of each other and part of a broader universe of humanity. It takes us outward instead of even though we meditate and we contemplate, we're also becoming more aware of the world beyond us and regarding it in a different way than the traditional ways we've been taught to regard it, and react to people and events in a more in some ways a less conclusive way. we are always searching for conclusions, laws, rules, and to be sure there need to be, but what what our relationships really mean with other people and with the world writ large is sort of redefined in my experience with Buddhism. And although the world happens as it happens, my reaction to it is gradually becoming different. I don't let it grip me as much.
Do you think that the word Buddhism, as you said that, it just made me think about something. And that a lot of people that I meet and so on, they don't like Buddhism, or they don't like the reference to it, no more or less than if I said, well, Christianity or Judaism, and it was all in their face all the time. You know what I'm saying? If I were to say, replace the word Buddhism or Buddha with the word freedom, and say, well, I'm trying to find freedom.
Well, we have to look, we need the scriptures in our studies and in our relationships. And the Buddha existed, and the Buddha's ideas have to be characterized in one way or another. And the ideas.
Well, what was the essence of his teaching? Exactly that. What was the essence of the teaching? What is it about?
Well, to me, it is the word "no thing" comes to my mind.
Okay.
And I'm trying to understand exactly what I mean by that. The paradigms of life, the rules of life, and the paths of life around us are from the moment we're born and go through childhood socialization. We're basically taught about the processes, about the way it is and how you live life and how you react to things. And Buddhism, to me, provides a and perhaps some other faiths as well, but Buddhism in a big way presents to me a different way to react or not to react to the storm of life around me, the great storm of life around me.
Well, can I interject this? Your analogy, your metaphor of, we're born into this life and so on, and then it's like a layering on. That our parents are layering stuff on us, our brothers and sisters are layering stuff on us, our schoolmates and teachers are layering things on us, and we go through life with all these layers being put onto us. And that what we're really trying to do is to liberate ourselves from all these layers.
Yes.
So the Buddha, he recognized this, he realized this, he realized why it happens and how it happens. And so he attained that liberation, that freedom from all those layers. Other people wanted that to do that. And he says, well, I just can't give you that, but I can teach you how I did it. And that became the Dharma teachings, you know, his experience of discovering what causes the layers and how to remove the layers. And so the essence of the whole thing is liberation. Liberation from all those layers that are making us heavy, that are making us dark, that are blocking the light that is within ourselves.
Buddhism teaches me, I think, that the world around us is a storm of illusions that would seize us and have us if we would let them.
Yeah, it's all these layers of stuff.
And while I want to be aware of what's going on and do watch, less and less, especially the way things are now.
But isn't it like going to a movie, to a film, to a theater or whatever, or a stage show or whatever, and really getting all wrapped up in the story and the characters, when the whole time it's just fiction? You know, it's just something that somebody made up. And can we project that idea to the world as it is today? This is the way most people live because this is the way they want to live.
Well,
we're at a point of choosing, do I want to live in the midst of all this chaos, or can I withdraw?
I'm trying to remember who it was. I'll remember as soon as we adjourn and I'm off sitting by myself. But I remember a wise man in my earlier career referring to it, that there are three types of lies in this world: lies, damn lies, and statistics. And in some sense, this sort of phenomena is thrown at us every time we get up out of our bed and step into life. That things can be justified. The worst of evil are justified by these types of phenomena. And they're swarming around us every day. You want to know what's happening in the world, but then it is hurled at you through the television or through the newspaper or through whatever it is you're perceiving the world. And I think that the emptiness, the sense of detachment, I'm struggling for words here, that Buddhism teaches us, it helps us to find refuge or safe harbor from those things. Understanding not what they mean, but what they don't mean. They mean what we let them mean. They mean what we let them mean. And I see that going on around me in the world today. Expecting turbulent and violent times that are around us, and they're obviously going to become more serious, and how I use my practice and my reflection and my meditation to find a safe harbor from that and find the mindfulness that delivers me from that is the secret to my spiritual survival, I believe.
Yeah, so there's a degree of, to put it in the words I'm trying to bring up, there's a freedom there. You're not binding yourself up in the chaos and the drama or whatever. There's an interest there because it affects us in one way or another. But at the same time, you know, it's going to be what it is, you know, and there's nothing we can do about that. You know, all we can do, the only thing we can control is our own self.
But if you look out at the world and observe through various means, television and other things, what I see is people seeking that drama and thinking that it's good,
Well, of course.
that it delivers them from the banality of their lives.
Yeah, but who is it? I mean, it's controlled by what? I don't know, 1%, a 0.5%. You
Of
know,
course,
how many 500 people in the world are leading everybody else around in their lives like rings in their nose? You know, the very wealthy who have the very, the politic leaders and so on. There's only a few of them. There's 8 billion peoples on the planet being led around by just a few people, comparatively speaking. And, we're caught in a quandary like everybody else, but we have a realization that this is what's happening, and that I can control my own life and taking responsibility for that. Either you want to play that game or you don't want to play that game.
most
Is that
tyrants,
oversimplification?
most tyrants understand. In fact, I think they all do. That while most people say that they want peace, that they find peace meaningless, because they're confused. They find meaning in the wrong things. They find meaning in vanquishing the other.
Well, there's no ego identity in peace.
Yes, it's that what that ego is. Ego is a word that has a good place in this conversation. And the smartest politicians, and earlier in my life, I saw a lot of them close up, understand this perverse and pathological need in people for some sort of self-justification. And they usually often do it through demonization of the other.
Yeah.
Point to the problem. They create a problem that doesn't exist and they point to it.
Yeah.
And
Let me ask Matt, because he's a psychologist. He's a counselor, to whatever degree he is, but I know he helps people with that. But do you see that dynamic in the work that you do? The ego manifestation creates, these imbalances, whether they become pathological or not, whether they become disease, would be a question. But generally speaking, can you see that in what we might call normal people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's at the heart of all of our suffering. Yeah, 100%. I see it in myself. I've been the organizing force of my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the ego strategies work. They seem to work in the short term, in the same way the substance use feels like it works and does work in the short term. If you have enough drinks, it'll take away that anxiety in the moment. Or avoiding, if you have anxiety disorder, anxious, avoiding the situation that brings up the anxiety will make you feel better in the moment. But all of these things reinforce the same cycles and make things worse and keep us spiraling. So something like that, it's very intoxicating as well, the samsara, I guess.
Do you think that peace, this idea of peace, does that have an intoxication quality to it?
Yeah. Yeah, it can. I mean, I think so much of us that we're playing out these certain patterns based on our past and our conditioning, or trying to resolve some kind of trauma, and these patterns play out almost on their own. In a sense, it can be very hard for all of us, I'm sure, and certainly for some people, to step outside of these patterns that often involve conflict and even seeking that out, or feeling more at home, or feeling more loved when there's conflict, or all kinds of things. It's we're complex beings.
Do you think an example of someone who is egocentric about their spirituality, for instance, about their egolessness, how does that manifest? To me, an example of that might be somebody who's always trying to interject themselves into a situation, and then using this piece as their fulcrum, as the wedge or something like that. But they're always trying to imprint that rather than just laying back and letting things unfold. And once in a while, you just interject an idea or a thought and then shut up and then just relax again and just let that drama see its way out. Does that make any sense to you? Much like I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to interject a conversation, but I'm trying to get the conversation to happen between everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to a lot of what Gary was talking about with the ego and the things we become part of our identity, and that's where they take on that solidity and can ultimately lead to a lot of negativity and that could be I mean, nowadays politics has become so much, I think, partly because there's not really a kind of transcendent ideal in our culture anymore, or something, a universalist kind of ethic or something, with religion and things have, caused a lot of problems as well. But, with the secularism being the dominant mode and the materialism. But I think it's a matter of, things become part of our identity. And I think we're all desperately searching for some way to solidify our ego and give ourselves some kind of solid ground to stand on. So we'll look for anything to give us that. And even our own suffering, even our own self-hatred can be comforting in giving us some kind of solid ground to stand on, no matter how much it's making us suffer. And that's also something I see with people I work with all the time, and even in my own history, where there's something comforting about there was something comforting in my depression or in my self-loathing, or as painful as it was, that kind of thing.
It's a great confusion. Every peace demonstration I've been to, people ended up breaking things. Nothing has really changed about the way we behave in response to what's going on now, or what was going on
When you
when
say
you and I were
breaking
young in
things,
1968.
are you meaning violence? Whether breaking glass or windows or breaking somebody's head or something like that?
Well, violence and the use of words to attack attack someone's character, which is a type of breaking. And I see no difference to what's happening with events now as to what was happening when you and I were very young. Back in 68. And to me, in both cases, you saw people who thought they were well-intended, but they got involved in a place where egos rampaged out of control. It quickly became about ego, all of these things. And I have to admit that that exasperates and saddens me now as much as it did then. But I think I understand it a little better now in my old age. It's the paradox, again, to use the word, a paradox.
Ryan, you just came and got a little closer to your phone. Did you have something you want to talk about?
Yeah, I liked what Gary was saying. In my habitual pattern. I was finishing his sentence before I got done listening to what he said, but I was thinking he was going to say at every peace demonstration he's ever been to, everybody was angry because that has been my experience. And that is kind of what I was relating earlier too, just with, you know, I try to be informed, and I feel like I have some kind of responsibility as a citizen of the world to stay informed, but it's really hard not to be angry when, you know, you dig into kind of like whatever you find as truth. So yeah, I really relate a lot to what everybody is saying here. And I feel like all of the teachings of the Buddha are teachings on how to okay, oh wow, how to kind of work away from our habitual patterns of thinking and acting, and work towards what we all know as the truth of as kind of love, and that being like our true nature. And so I think, yeah, those two things feel like they're in conflict to me, and I feel like that is kind of like the conflict between the ego and the world around the self, and then kind of like synthesizing those two things and finding where they're kind of one and the same is like the process that we're trying to work through. So.
The conversation I always like to get involved in with people that I know and so on is, you know, about spirituality and how to give access to spirituality to more people and so on. And I was talking with some friends yesterday, and they're Tibetans, and one of them was telling me that he wanted to go. He saw something online that had to do with there was going to be this meeting that was going to be open to the public. There was going to be this group talking about peace and talking about meditation, and it seemed to be it was being sponsored by monks from Southeast Asia. So they would have been like Hinayana, they would have been Theravadan, and so on. And it was in this big place, and there was. So he goes to this, and he says there was hundreds of people there, and they were all really interested in how to meditate. You know, because part of this program was for these monks to be teaching a meditation to these folks and everything. And I asked, you know, well, who was the audience? You know, were they Eastern people or were they Western people? He said they were mostly Western people, and they were mostly young, in their 20s or 30s. And I thought that was really great. I thought that was amazing, because there is this, you know, to use the word silent majority or something. There's a great deal of people who are really interested in being able to change their consciousness and to use meditation as a method to be able to do that. And I think what a lot of people are trying to do, what I'm trying to do with other people, is how to you know, create that radio station or be able to transmit that radio station so it's available to more people to tune in and so on. So my point in bringing this up is that there's a lot of people who are fed up, who are tired of what's going on when they turn on TV, and that they're young people. They're not ignoring it, but they're trying to find another way in which to change the conversation at large with, you know, the world population and so on. What do we go to instead of all this chaos? How do we find our way out of this chaos? How do we subdue this chaos? Is, I think, what people are looking for.
And I'll say, I mean, I share people's thoughts and sentiment about the state of the world and all that. But I think as a kind of a helpful counterbalance as well, like if you look at the work of the psychologist and sociologist at Harvard, Steven Pinker, and some others, that looking through like by basically every metric, things are continually to get better and better and better and better, even in the midst of what sounds so terrible, what is terrible, of the things that happen. That really, I mean, maybe not environmentally, but other than that, you know, that, I mean, really any metric, whether it be violence or, you know, childhood mortality or literacy rate or people raising out of extreme poverty or lifespan, whatever it may be, that all of these things are, you know, for a while now have been getting significantly better.
That's a great point.
Even, I mean, I don't want to dismiss how all of the things that are going on, or that things don't, I agree, things seem to be taking a squirrely turn here where it's like a little scary, but I think overall that's a helpful counterbalance for myself sometimes, of the kind of despair of or getting too cynical myself or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. That and again, it goes to my point earlier about that maybe there's 500 people or something like that that's controlling, you know, everybody else, and the media certainly has a huge role in that, and their thirst for sensationalism, you know, to get sponsorship, which is the way they make their money, and people tune in for sensational experience, you know, and it's contaminating, it's corrupting, you know, the peace that people really want, and they don't recognize that, but yet we do know we want the peace, but we got swamped by the corruption.
I had an experience once that might be helpful to share here. I was at DDSC in Fairfax, and I think you were there at the time, Lance. I was sitting next to Drupon, your teacher, and you had introduced me to him that day. And we were, as it happened to be, we were watching the news. And it was something horrible going on. I mean, this was quite a few years ago. It's probably 4 years ago, so I can't remember exactly what it was. But it seemed like, you know, the world was on the brink of World War III, just like it feels like it is right now, or like it maybe is right now. And I started to ask him a question. I said, Drupon, do you think? And he looked at me and he goes, with a raised eyebrow, he goes, world peace? Like, he knew exactly what I was thinking. And I was like, yeah, like, do you think that's possible? And he said, not in our life. And I thought that was really amazing. Like, it was like a really amazing kind of like realization, and like just like a reality check, kind of. Like, that wasn't the point, you know, or maybe it wasn't as important as I was feeling like it was, or something like that. I don't know. I still think about it a lot, and think about kind of like the way that he said that, and you know, maybe what he meant by it.
Well, that goes back to my point that, you know, being a human being is being caught up in samsara. We take samsara with us.
Yeah,
we
I feel like that's what
generate
he was saying.
we
It's like,
generate samsara.
right. It's not so much like what's going on outside of us. It's more like what's going on inside of us.
It's part of human nature. So the trick is to transcend human nature.
Yeah, I like George Carlin quite a bit, and he said something like, when you're born in this world, you're given a ticket to the freak show, and when you're born in America, you got a front row seat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of samsara in a way, I guess. I don't know. I'll shut
Yeah.
up.
But that goes to my point, you know, is being a human being the end game? Or can we transcend being a human being into something that is ineffable, you know, inexplainable? And that's really what we're trying to do. You know, that's the basis of what our liberation is, you know, to transcend. We got to go through to become a perfect human being. And that perfect human being is able to make that transcendence because we need the body, we need the intellect, we need the heart. And then we're able to make the transcendence and so on. When we drop our body, then that essence there, that's the ineffableness. You know, where does that go? What does that do? And so on. So that's what we're working at. So going to bring this back home, you know, this is what we're doing. This is what the Mahamudra is all about. This is what liberation is all about. This is what the Ngöndro is all about, is a guideway, a pathway to be able to get to be a complete human being, to be able to transcend that ordinariness of the samsara that we create. And what it means is we got to leave the samsara behind. There comes a point where we cut it off. We say, I'm going to stop. It's really that simple. It's hard, but it's that simple. You say, I'm not going to play that game anymore. And you can watch it on TV, you can hear it in the news or whatever, but you're not affected by it. The Buddha sees all the suffering. The Buddha sees all the causes of the suffering, but remains unattached or has no aversion toward it. It's at peace with it. All right.
Right.
Well,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like to get to that point, I need to have a better grasp and understanding of karma. To, you know, because, yeah, that's it.
Well, and that's the practice. You know, to go inside and see how it is that the causes of the actions that you've taken for yourself and the results that they made, and to be able to come out of that and be able to apply that to your life now as it becomes after that realization, or over and over again. Right now, it maybe is still a intellectual observation. It hasn't become visceral yet. Well, thank you guys. I think we need to do our dedication. So I've got the proper book here. So we're all on the same page, literally. So we go to page 37. That's the lineage prayer, correct? Dorje Chang Talopa. Okay, so we all recite this with heartfelt conviction. Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dormalorgampopa, Pagmajupa, and Lordri Kompa. Please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kaju Lamas. By this virtue may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, as Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra realized the ultimate state, Buddhahood, I will follow in their path and share the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikampa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. And Lord Trikampa is Lord Jigdan Sumgun, the founder of this lineage, and there's many, 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 many great masters. He's not the only one. So, Om, Ah, Hung, Om, Ah, Hung, Om, Ah, Hung. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all beings. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance.